I learned the hard way that trust isn't given freely. The rain came down in soft, steady sheets the afternoon Elias first appeared at my door. I was 34 then, living alone in the narrow stone house my grandmother had left me on the edge of Saint-Étienne, a village tucked into the folds of the Massif Central where the roads narrow and the signal fades. The house smelled always of damp wood, old books, and the faint memory of lavender my grandmother used to hang in the rafters. I had grown comfortable with its quiet, the way solitude becomes a habit you no longer question. He stood under the shallow overhang, water dripping from the brim of his dark felt hat, a small leather satchel in one hand. His coat was good wool, well cut but soaked through. He introduced himself as Elias Moreau, a historian tracing medieval pilgrimage routes through the Auvergne. His car, he explained, had slid off the D road 2 kilometers back. The axle was damaged. Might he use my telephone? Mobile coverage was non-existent even on clear days. I let him in. Why wouldn't I? He spoke with the measured calm of someone accustomed to archives and quiet reading rooms. His eyes, gray-green, attentive, met mine without demand or evasion. He called a garage in Clermont-Ferrand, gave precise coordinates, thanked the mechanic, then turned to me with simple courtesy. While we waited, he had been told it would be several hours. He asked if he might sit by the fire to dry his coat. He offered tea. He accepted with a small nod, as though the offer were a rare courtesy. We spoke. Or rather, he spoke and I listened. He described the Via Podiensis, the old route that once carried thousands of pilgrims toward Compostela, scallop shells pinned to their cloaks. He knew the names of long-vanished hospices, the dates of papal indulgences, the precise wording of a 13th-century charter that mentioned travelers given shelter near the spring beneath the oak. His knowledge felt alive, not academic posturing. When he asked about my life, I gave brief answers. Freelance translator of scholarly texts, mostly French to English, no family nearby, content with the village's gentle distance. By dusk the mechanic arrived. Elias paid in cash, crisp notes from his wallet. He turned to me with an envelope. For the telephone and your hospitality. Inside were 300 euros. Far too much. I tried to refuse. He pressed it gently into my hand. Consider it gratitude. And perhaps, a small token toward future conversations. He left. I thought the matter closed. 3 weeks later a letter arrived, postmarked Lyon. Elias wrote that his research had uncovered a reference to a parcel adjacent to the dwelling of the widow Lefebvre. My house, or the one that stood here in 1247. He wondered if I might permit him and a surveyor to walk the property line, take measurements, perhaps a few photographs for his footnotes. Nothing would be disturbed. He enclosed a letter of reference from a professor at the Sorbonne and contact details for the Bibliothèque Nationale. Called the professor. He sounded busy but confirmed Elias was a serious independent scholar, known for meticulous work on lesser-known pilgrimage documents. Agreed. Elias returned in April, bringing a quiet surveyor who spoke mostly to his instruments. They spent 2 afternoons pacing the overgrown boundary, marking corners with small stakes painted white. Elias pointed out subtle depressions in the soil where the ancient path might have run, showed me a lichen-crusted stone he believed had once supported a wayside cross. He was careful, almost reverent. When they finished he thanked me again, left a bottle of Sauternes on the kitchen table, and promised to send the relevant chapter when it was drafted. Over the following months we corresponded. His letters were long, thoughtful, rich with small discoveries. Did I know the local tale of the reliquary lost in the river during the 100 Years' War? Had I noticed the faint carving on the lintel above the back door, a scallop shell almost worn away? I began to anticipate the envelopes, the sense that someone saw meaning in this place I had inherited without fully understanding it. I answered his questions. I sent photographs when he requested them. Once I drove to the departmental archives in Le Puy and copied records he could not access remotely. In October he telephoned. His voice was tighter than before, edged with something urgent yet controlled. The book had found interest from a small university press in Geneva. They required a full topographic survey of the site, including ground-penetrating radar, to verify the path's exact route. The cost was substantial. The press would reimburse only after publication. Could he borrow 15,000 euros? He would repay within 6 months with interest if I wished. As security, he offered his apartment in Paris's 6th arrondissement. He sent the deed reference number and his notaire's name. I hesitated. 15,000 euros was nearly all my savings. Yet every step had been consistent. The references checked, the details accurate, the care he took never to press. I remembered my grandmother's voice, low and certain. Trust must be earned, child. Never give it because someone asks nicely. But she had also taught me the value of openness, of extending a hand when no harm seemed possible. I transferred the money. For 2 months the letters continued. Grateful, detailed, full of progress. Then they stopped. In January my own letter to the Lyon address returned unopened. The telephone number he had given was disconnected. I wrote to the Sorbonne professor. He replied courteously. He had never heard of Elias Moreau. No researcher by that name was known to the department. The Paris apartment did not exist under the deed number provided. The notaire had no record of any such client. The Bibliothèque Nationale had no file under his name. I drove to the village café and asked old Monsieur Delorme, who had lived here all his 82 years, if he recalled anyone inquiring about the Roman road or the widow Lefebvre's charter. He laughed softly. No one's asked about that path since the old surveyor died in '89. And the widow Lefebvre. That tale ended with my grandfather. That night I sat in the cold kitchen and spread every letter, every photograph, every note across the table. The paper felt suddenly thin. The handwriting too deliberate. The details too perfectly aligned. There had been no car accident, no bent axle, no garage call. The felt hat, the bottle of Sauternes, the small bow of the head, they were chosen with the same care he used to select words. Trust is not a gift offered at first meeting. It is a slow structure, built of tested truths over time. Once broken, its stones never quite fit the same way again. I keep Elias's letters in a drawer beside the fireplace. Not from nostalgia but as quiet evidence. The rain still falls in soft, steady sheets on certain afternoons. When it does, I bolt the door, light the fire and sit alone. And I wait for the next envelope that will never come.